Good morning, everybody. I hope everybody's having a marvelous day. And if your day just started, welcome. Do you like walking outside in your underwear and not having to worry about a gosh darn thing? Well, I do. And that's just a beautiful benefit that we have in living in the country, right? At least one of the amazing benefits of living in the country. When you think about country living compared to city life, have you really looked at the pros and cons to this situation? We all eventually have to move out of our parents' house, right? And if you already have, congratulations. No, I'm playing. But I believe that we should have these factors in our back pocket when making a big decision like that. Today we will be talking about the multiple downsides of living in the city versus living in the countryside, some ways to prevent these downsides of living in the city, and call to action for this situation. There are multiple downsides of living in the city versus living in the countryside. For one, lack of space. Usually properties outside of city limits are cheaper but also gain more land and more property space to do more things, as said by Ryan 2019 article Pros and Cons of Moving to the Country. Something I can emphasize with that being said is you could have animals, you could have events, you could have parties, you could have animals with parties, whatever your little heart desires. But with lack of space, we also got to talk about the city, right? You will constantly be hearing sirens, cars, dogs, whatever, those small little things outside of your house. Things that you wouldn't necessarily hear if you were living in the country, as said by Susan Patterson in article 8 Reasons to Ditch the City Life and Move to the Country. Another great example would be stress. Do you like stress? Do you like stress? I don't like stress. And I believe no one likes stress, right? So why add more to your plate? When living in the city, you always have to worry about others constantly, right? You have to worry about your neighbor over here, Bob, whatever his name is, if that his yard's the same size as yours, because if his yard isn't the same size as yours, it doesn't make yours look just as good. Or you got to worry about his little dog coming over here and pooping on your yard. Just things that you wouldn't have to worry about if you were living alone in the country with more space. Also, did you know that crime rates in the city compared to crime rates in the country are way different? Crime rates in the city are way higher compared to the country rates. As said by Kimberly Don Newman, an article, 5 surprising benefits of living in the country according to science, right? When it says science, you know it's true. Sometimes. But some ways we can prevent these downsides of living in the city are purchasing a home or property outside of city limits. I believe you'd get more bang for your buck, if you know what I mean, right? We would acquire more land for the same price that you would pay for a house in town. That would be crazy if you wouldn't take that offer, right? And that was said in More Land to Acquire in Country, Brahard 20. Less stress, like we talked about, you don't have to worry about stress out here. You don't. If you have animals, those are the things you're going to have to worry about. But I believe you and your family would be way safer out here compared to living in the city. Also, your children will become accustomed to living outside in the country, right? And then later on, when they grow up, they'll think, okay, I like that. I don't think I ever want to go back to the city. I want to have bonfires. I want to have my cows or whatever your little heart wants. And that will just continue the chain of living outside. Now, call to action for this situation. I believe schools should teach how to purchase property. Schools should have courses learning about purchasing properties. I really think that. I really think that would be a benefit for not just living in the city, but living in the country. Well, I got those mixed up. Not for just living in the country, but also living in the city if you want. But Also, what we could do in that format is having activities, learning and viewing what kind of lifestyle they could have if you would live in the country, right? So, if you want to see how a rancher lives, I would feel like that would be a great little field trip, right? Right, great little field trip to see cows and see what kind of people they live with, just stuff like that. Also, grown-ups like us should consider investing time in learning about country retail. You may be asking, how? How can I invest my time into doing that? By talking to your local retailer and asking about economical and health benefits. Yes, I said health benefits. You don't, that's stress. Stress is a big, big thing. Just imagine looking at all those trees, listening to all those birds chirp, listening to all those cows moo. Well, I don't know if you want that, but you get what I'm trying to say. Also, talking to a friend that may live in the country may increase your odds into living in the country, right? You may see, man, this guy seems so happy. Man, he has so many things outside of his house and he doesn't have to worry about anybody telling him anything, right? Ask them. Ask them. What would they prefer? I promise you, no, once you live outside in the country, you never want to go back to the city because you're just so used to having so much liberty, right? But in conclusion, we talked about the major benefits of living in the countryside over the grubby little city. I'm playing. By examining the downsides of living in the city and the pros and cons of considering. Now let me say that again. Downside of living in the city and pros and cons of considering to live in the country. Well, with all that being said, I hope I convinced you that walking outside in your underwear is a luxury when it comes to living in the country.